Hey, welcome to another edition of Influence Today with Chet Tart and Terry Lyles. Hi, Terry. Good to see you and good to hear you today.
Yeah, you too, Chet. Love doing this. We have a lot of great conversations, or we think they are anyway. But um, you know, I think they are. We do get a lot of great responses from around the world, actually, and as in corporate Americas, I do a lot of corporate training, so it is good when we can see traffic coming, and we try to keep topics that are influenceable, relevant, and current because that's what people want to hear. So I appreciate you doing this with me. We've been doing this for how long?
4 years, I think now.
Yeah, it was before COVID, so four, almost 5 years. So yeah, no, it's a great format. It's a good way for us to talk about things that we're interested in, and perhaps it's interesting to others.
I never counted all the episodes, and maybe there's a round number that we should take a look at. I should count them all and see where we
Yeah,
stand.
there's a lot of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking a couple things going on. I have grandkids going to school, and you have kids going to school also.
Mhm.
And the topic of bullying still seems to come up and still need to be discussed. And you and I were talking before we started this podcast about how to deal with it. And I do remember growing up, there was bullying going on all the time, but we took it off ground, and it was just somebody beating somebody else up or somebody watching somebody beat somebody else up. But now I think it's a little bit intense with the social media, and
Oh
you
yeah.
you could really get crushed with the amount of marketing, I would say, that takes place on social media. And in your book, Becoming Invaluable, you talk about how parents should get involved and how they should coach their children. Share with us a little bit about that and a little bit about what you're noticing in the bullying of today.
Yeah, so my new book that came out, I wrote it with a business partner of mine, Steve Bowen, who's a business owner, director, and sold his business and semi-retired and just enjoying life and boating and doing what he wants. Um, so I asked him to write this book with me because he's just a wealth of information about business and how to acquire business. So the whole concept of becoming invaluable is what is your valuation as a human being? What is your, because if you go to sell a company, you have to create a value. So they call it a valuation. So you bring in a team of attorneys, forensic accountants, and they look at everything and they say, your company is worth X. And then you go out and you try to double it. Okay, get as much as you can. And then you end up at that number. But it's a valuation, it's a value of something based upon parameters.
And
Okay, how much cash?
the whole thing is value. You're
It's
adding
all
value
value.
to the team as a leader. I mean, I'm dealing with some people who want to sell their company, some CEOs, and they do everything. And I go, your company's not worth a thing because you are the company.
That's right. It's
And
a
if you valued your team, you would coach them and train them. And the other word off topic here, the other word I hear, well, they're adults and I don't want to babysit them. And I said, the reason you're babysitting because you haven't coached them in the right way and you haven't told them your expectations clearly.
right. No, and you're so spot on. That is on topic because it is all about people, and valuation to a company also includes people, leadership, the teams that are built around it. Sometimes companies are bought and they get rid of everyone. They go in and they clean house. Sometimes they retain them because they're like, look, you're doing a great job. We don't know the business. It's just a good investment. So there's a lot of things that go into companies that are being
Hmm.
evaluated and bought and sold. But you're right, the human capital part of it is huge. And that's what is in the book, Becoming Invaluable, is how do you build your human capital to be irreplaceable? That's becoming invaluable. How do you become the most valued person in your sphere of influence? As I say, all of us have a je ne sais quoi. There's something special about all of us.
Yes,
What is it for
correct.
you?
Yeah,
It could
yeah.
be multiple things, but that's part of your valuation. So that's what we get into. So unfortunately, with bullying, I blame the parents more than the kids because the parents are the leaders in the home. And if there's no leaders in the home, the kids just run wild. They're in the streets. So as I say, they're not being raised, they just grow up. And growing up without boundaries is really dangerous. Growing up with boundaries is still potentially dangerous. But without boundaries and accountability and leadership, it's fatal. And Chet, I do a lot of newscasts every week on all kinds of networks, national, international, local. I do at least one interview a week, at least on either bullying, school shootings, or terrorism. And they're all the same thing because a bully is a terrorist in training. They're inflicting terror on someone else to make them afraid of them as the bully, who really, the bullies, if they're listening, listen to me really carefully. You are afraid. You're afraid.
Yeah.
You're weak. You have to beat somebody up to feel strong. Get help.
Oh, I totally agree. I call it low self-esteem. I see it in businesses, especially in the construction business, when people are just rolling over people and they don't like the person doing it. And I said, he has very low self-esteem. He has to be right all the time, and he has to make sure that he's blaming you. He's the victim, but he's blaming you for the work that wasn't done properly, that he didn't communicate to you properly also. Yeah, I see it every day. So it continues after school into business. If you're a
Absolutely.
bully, you're going to be a bully through life.
I see it in corporate America just as much as in school, and to your point, that's called dictatorship, not leadership.
Yeah.
Dictatorship takes place on the high negative quadrant of emotion and control, and it's all bound by insecurity, fears, lack of self-esteem, emotional damage, emotional concussions, spiritual concussions. It's really interesting. You see it everywhere, but schools it becomes more prevalent because in the leadership world, it's really not called out as bullying. It's just like they're just a tough business person. Okay, so you kind of
Yeah.
get praised for it in the corporate. It's like, well, they're
Yeah.
a shrewd business person. Well,
They're not.
not if they're dictating. If they're leading, okay, maybe, but they're not. A leader doesn't bully. A leader encourages, motivates, inspires, and people follow them. Dictatorship is if you make a decision and I'm not aware of it, I could fire you. If you make the wrong decision, I am aware of it, I'll fire you. You do what I tell you to do, or I'll fire you. That's dictatorship. I mean, we got dictators all over the world we're fighting with. They don't ask questions. They make statements, and if you don't do it, you disappear.
Let's get back to bullying in a second in schools. When we were talking, I was floored by what the schools ask him to do. If somebody destroys you, beats you up, punches you, and you're by yourself, and there's maybe two, three, four of them, you're not supposed to do anything back. You're the one that gets in trouble. Is that the policy?
Yep. It's not get in trouble. It's just don't re-engage. Tell an adult or tell a teacher. I'm like, well, you know what? That don't work in my world. I'm sorry, but I'll tell an adult or a teacher. But if you're on a bus,
And that's
like
worse for the child. It's worse because
it's worse. But the
because
schools just mitigating lawsuits and school shootings, which I understand. They're the corporate entity that's trying to protect its valuation. I get that. However, the clients are the children and the teachers. So how do we mitigate that? I mean, I have a 11-year-old son. I made my own grandchild, Chet. You know that. I mean, you got grandchildren my son's age, and it's just that's a whole nother podcast we should have with my wife Marcia because it's pretty interesting.
that'd be
Uh,
very interesting. Yeah.
yeah, but he's on a school bus and he goes to a great school. A great school. Actually, it's a public school that is a school of the arts that you have to be accepted to get in. You can't even pay to get in. You have to be accepted on whatever your perform talent is. It could be theater, art, music. His is for music, plays piano specifically. Um, and he rides a bus. They've been in school. This is full 3 weeks now. The school is not close by. It's 90 minutes one way there and 90 minutes home. He leaves home at 6:15 and gets home at 5 o'clock.
Wow.
It's a
That's a
long day, a big
that's a work
commitment.
longer than a work day. Yeah.
Longer than a workday just to play piano and get educated. But it is the finest school here in South Florida by recurring scores in math, English, and science, plus the arts. So it's a great school. We're very privileged to be able to go there. And he's been bullied over and over. The last one happened this morning on the way in a bus. And a couple, three kids came up to him and wanted his seat. And he's sitting next to one of his buddies on the school bus. And they're trying to drag him out of his seat, and the school bus driver is just do 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 do. You need police officers or SWAT teams on these buses, and they don't know what's going on. And he finally got out of his seat, and gave it to them, and they didn't even take it. They were just after him.
Yeah.
Last week, somebody pulled on his backpack, and if you haven't checked your grandson's backpack, they weigh about 30 pounds. It's like a rucksack back in your like military. It's got
Right.
books and bricks and all kinds of things in it for all day. And somebody pulled it on his backpack when he was going up concrete steps, and he went down the steps and could have had a concussion. Went to the nurse's office. We had to go get him. He was having some dizziness, and nothing was done. Nothing's reported. We go pick him up. The week before that, same thing, just not on the steps. And I'm like, is it just my son? Is it his je ne sais quoi? Because he's a very like he's not aggressive. He's very friendly. You know, it's just his personality. Now, I would if he was aggressive, I'd be like, he's probably instigating this.
Hmm.
And him and I would have a come to Jesus meeting more often. But I know my son, and it's not just because he's my son. I'm a psychologist, so obviously I want the best for my son. But I'm not going to lie to him or myself. If he's bullying, I'm gonna be the first one to confront him heavily because he'll end up getting shot. You know, and this is going on in my world. So my wife's on the phone as we speak with the school, trying to figure out what are we going to do. What do you want us to do? Do we quit school? Do we do something else? Are you going to engage somehow? Do we call the police? It's all this stuff that's out there that people just like me don't know what to do. I know what to do. I'm just doing it slowly because I have a lot of access and resources. You know, we could go to the police force that I train. I could make one phone call just like you could in that world. You know, we can get things done. I can go directly to the news like in the next 30 minutes. I can have all the local shows talking to me. Like I can do a lot of things and name some names, and I can. They don't know that, and I don't want to go there because I don't want that to appear as bullying. I just want my child to be safe and get educated. That's it. So if a child is bullying and the parents don't know, how is it corrected? It's not. So the parents have to know. The bullying parents have to realize they're the bullying parent. Take care of your kid, or the school has to take care of the kid.
So do you think it's important that you talk to the parents of the bullying kids or the
Now
school talk?
we have to talk to the school,
Okay.
and then the school has to hopefully do their job. It's like leadership protocol. You go to your reporting officer and you report, and then they have to report up. That's the way it's designed to work, even in the military. It's a chain of command. And we do that because that's the bylaws, and I agree with those bylaws. I would never go directly to a parent because that'll end up badly. So yeah, where I grew up and how I went to school, we fought every day. I grew up in the hood during busing. I was telling you this a little bit before the show, and we fought every day, and it was just what it was. But no one brought guns, you know.
No, you brought your fists.
You brought
That's
your
what you
fist,
did.
and if you have to
Right.
use them, but now these kids come back with ARs. And you know what? I understand why they do. Some of these kids, they're not psychotic. They're just pissed off because they got bullied every day, made fun of. These kids call each other names. And my son's in middle school. It's the grossest time in life is
Yeah,
middle
it's
school.
tough. It's
It's
tough.
it's tough. It's tough. So my piece on bullying is if you're not involved, get involved. I say this all the time on the news. See something, say something, but you also have to do it as a parent. If you see something that's being bullied in your family or your friends or your neighborhood, you got to report. How do you report? You report to the school. If the school doesn't respond, you report to the law. If the law doesn't respond, you just hope and pray or change direction.
It's interesting that you're talking about this because I do have a grandchild that goes to middle school, and since he's been going there, he said, "Pop, this is what I see. I see kids with ankle bracelets in
Oh
my
yeah,
class.
yeah,
I see kids, who are beating up other kids." So far, he's been staying away from that, but he says it's a little bit it's different for being in middle school. I mean, it's tough.
yeah. And this is my son's first year of middle school. Probably yours as well.
Yeah, first year.
So you got 6, 7, and 8 graders. So of course the seventh and eighth graders are the big kids on the block. They're the bullies, and normally that's what it comes down to. I think that the humorous part is, guess what they do next? They become freshmen. Now they
Yeah,
become bullied.
they become bullied. Yes, freshmen are
It's
always
a
bullied.
it's a cycle, dude. It's a cycle. They don't know what's coming. But you know what? I don't wish any bad will on anybody. But I do like gravity.
Yeah, for some reason, would think that if you talk to an adult, it's worse. The reason being is that you get bullied more because I'm not sure how active the school is or an adult is in taking care and protecting you. I mean,
Yeah,
that's not their job, first of all.
no,
When you signed up to be a teacher, you weren't signed up to be a security guard.
you
You're
are
supposed to
now.
be teaching. You're supposed to be teaching.
Yeah, you better be trained in martial arts today in our schools and weapons warfare because I mean, you need to know how to disarm someone that has a gun that's within striking distance. I mean, unfortunately, to your point, they're not just teaching now. Teaching is just a byproduct of what they do.
It's amazing.
It's not the main thing anymore. The main thing is safety in a school. The number one thing. Interview any school, any superintendent that'll tell you the truth. It's safety. That's why they lock them down. That's why they have extra security. That's why they have police forces driving around. Isn't that sad? It's like me going to the grocery store and I need food. So I go to the grocery store to buy food, just like you go to school to learn, right? But I got to go through gangs to get to the grocery store. And then you start thinking, how hungry am I? Do I really want to go through the gangs block by block by block walking to get to the grocery store so I can feed my family if that was my situation? That's school today.
I think what we've lost, and I don't know how to get it back, the environment is so strong on how we react to things. And I think we've lost our values, and you can see it everywhere, even in politicians and the people we look at.
Absolutely.
And I think we've lost the family value, how tight the family used to be, and how we used to sit down at dinner and discuss things. And I remember sitting down and having a meal. I mean, even with the grandkids, I'm not eating that. I don't want this. I'm not hungry right now. And we allow that. That was never allowed. You
Right.
brought up boundaries. When I was getting our dog trained, they said, we're not training the dog, we're training the owners because
Exactly.
they're responsible for the dog and how
They
it
walk
acts.
the dog.
That's right. And she brought up a good point. The trainer said, here's how a dog's life is. A red light, they know what to do. Stop. A green light, they know what to do. If you give them yellow lights, they're stressed because do we go, do we, and the same with raising a child. And
Yes.
I also see my other daughter who's raising a child that has very strict boundaries, has rules and regulations, and he is flourishing. I mean, in every aspect of his life, he's just growing faster. He's much more mature. He puts his toys back. He cleans up. He's speaking better at 2 than my other grandchild did at 2. It's a different world. It's
It
just,
is.
and it goes back to the parents. You can see it. They're a family unit and they have strong values. And I
That's why
think
we chose
that's what's missing.
that's what we chose on the title, becoming invaluable. Invaluable. You are able to create self-value. Invaluable. You are able to create self-value, which we call this human capital piece of that je ne sais quoi. Build it, grow it. Our child, when he wakes up in the morning, he's 11. He gets up, he has an alarm clock. He wakes up. We have one too, but he has an alarm clock because we want to teach him that you got to be responsible. So he wakes up, he gets up most days. Some days he sleeps through it because he sleeps like a rock, but we're getting there.
Hmm.
And he goes to bed early so he can get a full night's sleep. That's the other thing. He doesn't play with his phone at night. He doesn't go to bed with his phone. His phone is in my office charging. That's a big one in today's world. Kids are on their phone all night and parents don't even know.
Right,
That's a whole
exactly.
nother podcast.
That's
But
right.
then what I wanted to get to was after he wakes up and he gets up, he makes his bed and then he comes downstairs for breakfast. And then he comes back upstairs. He does his hygiene. He puts his clothes on. He comes back downstairs. He reshuffles his bag for the day and he goes to the bus.
I like the fact that he made his bed. I really did.
It's a
That
great book. If you didn't read it, First Make Your Bed, General McCravey, look it up on YouTube. It was a speech he did in Texas. He's a retired admiral in the Navy, and the book is called First Make Your Bed.
I
And one
was
thing,
I was a privilege to be on a podcast with him.
oh, nice.
My friend Ryan Hawk. Do you remember we
I
interviewed him,
do. I do.
and he allowed me to be on that podcast
It's
to
it's so
listen to it.
simple, but to your point, the boundaries, and My beds are made in the house right now. I mean, like I wake up in the morning, I make the bed, and he said something that always stuck with me. And this was several years ago. He goes, if you first make your bed, he goes, even if you have a horrible day and you barely get home and all you want to do is eat and go to bed, at least you started your day in success and you go home to a freshly made bed and you can start over again tomorrow as a fresh day. And it's so simple, but it's very powerful. That's
Yeah.
becoming invaluable.
Thank you. Hey, in
Yep,
the next podcast, why don't we do talk about some of the chapters and also your workbook so that people can pick it up and
absolutely.
find out how invaluable that will be for them.
Yeah. And they can, if they're interested now, you can research it and look at it on becominginvaluable.com. And
Mhm.
you can reach out to me there as well. We have an audio book, the physical book, and a whole mastery class. So check it out. Get involved. We're having some great interest in that. If they want to reach me personally, terrylyles.com, or you can reach back through Becoming Invaluable with the book and reach me that way too.
Thank you, Terry, and thanks for listening today. And if you like the podcast, please share with other people. Give us some 5 stars, recommendations, comments, everything. And thank you for listening to Influence Today.